earlier this month showed that payroll job growth slowed to an average pace of only 35,000 per month over the past 3 months, down from 168,000 per month during 2024. This slowdown is much larger than assessed just a month ago, as the earlier figures for May and June were revised down substantially. But it does not appear that the slowdown in job growth has opened up a large margin of slack in the labor market, an outcome we want to avoid. The unemployment rate, while edging up in July, stands at a historically low level of 4.2% and has been broadly stable over the past year. Other indicators of labor market conditions are also little changed or have softened only modestly, including quits, layoffs, the ratio of vacancies to unemployment, and nominal wage growth. Labor supply has softened in line with demand, sharply lowering the break-even rate of job creation needed to hold the unemployment rate constant. Indeed, labor force growth has slowed considerably this year with the sharp fall-off in immigration, and the labor force participation rate has edged down in recent months. Overall, while the labor market appears to be in balance, it is a curious kind of balance that results from a marked slowing in both the supply of and demand for workers. This unusual situation suggests that downside risks to employment are rising. And if those risks materialize, they can do so quickly in the form of sharply higher layoffs and rising unemployment. At the same time, GDP growth has slowed notably in the first half of this year to a pace of 1.2%, roughly half the 2.5% pace in 2024. The decline in growth has largely reflected a slowdown in consumer spending. As with the labor market, some of the slowing in GDP likely reflects slower growth of supply or potential output. Turning to inflation, higher tariffs have begun to push up prices in some categories of goods. Estimates based on the latest available data indicate that total PCE prices rose 2.6% over the 12 months ending in July. Excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core PCE prices rose 2.9%, above their level of a year ago. Within core, prices of goods increased 1.1% over the past 12 months, a notable shift from the modest decline seen over the course of 2024. In contrast, housing services inflation remains on a downward trend, and non-housing services inflation is still running at a level a bit above what has been historically consistent with a 2% inflation. The effects of tariffs on consumer prices are now clearly visible. We expect those effects to accumulate over coming months with high uncertainty about both timing and amounts. The question that matters for monetary policy is whether these price increases are likely to materially raise the risk of an ongoing inflation problem. A reasonable base case is that the effects will be relatively short-lived, a one-time shift in the price level. Of course, one time does not mean all at once. It will continue to take time for tariff increases to work their way through supply chains and distribution networks. Moreover, tariff rates continue to evolve, potentially prolonging the adjustment process. It's also possible, however, that the upward pressure on prices from tariffs could spur a more lasting inflation dynamic, and that is a risk to be assessed and managed. One possibility is that workers who see their real incomes decline because of higher prices demand and get higher wages from employers, setting off adverse wage-price dynamics. Given that the labor market is not particularly tight and faces increasing downside risks, that outcome does not seem likely. Another possibility is that inflation expectations could move up, dragging actual inflation with them. Inflation has been above our target for more than 4 years and remains a prominent concern for households and businesses. Measures of longer-term inflation expectations, however, as reflected in market and survey-based measures, appear to remain well anchored and consistent with our longer-run inflation objective of 2%. Of course, we cannot take the stability of inflation expectations for granted. Come what may, we will not allow a one-time increase in the price level to become an ongoing inflation problem. So, putting the pieces together, what are the implications for monetary policy? In the near term, risks to inflation are tilted to the upside and risks to employment to the downside, a challenging situation. When our goals are in tension like this, our framework calls for us to balance both sides of our dual mandate. Our policy rate is now 100 basis points closer to neutral than it was a year ago, and the stability of the unemployment rate and other labor market measures allows us to proceed carefully as we consider changes to our policy stance. Nonetheless, with policy in restrictive territory, the baseline outlook and the shifting balance of risks may warrant adjusting our policy stance. Monetary policy is not on a preset course. FOMC members will make these decisions based solely on their assessment of the data and its implications for the economic outlook and the balance of risks. We will never deviate from that approach. So, turning then to my second topic. Our monetary policy framework is built on the unchanging foundation of our mandate from Congress to foster maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. We remain fully committed to fulfilling our statutory mandate, and the revisions to our framework will support that mission across a broad range of economic conditions. Our revised statement on longer-run goals and monetary policy strategy, which we refer to as our consensus statement to save time, describes how we pursue our dual mandate goals. It is designed to give the public a clear sense of how we think about monetary policy, and that understanding is important both for transparency and accountability, and for making monetary policy more effective. The changes we made in this review are a natural progression grounded in our ever-evolving understanding of our economy. We continue to build upon the initial consensus statement adopted in 2012 under Chairman Ben Bernanke's leadership. Today's revised statement is the outcome of the second public review of our framework, which we conduct at 5-year intervals. This year's review included 3 elements: Fed Listens events at reserve banks around the country, a flagship research conference, and policymaker discussions and deliberations supported by staff analysis at a series of FOMC meetings. In approaching this year's review, a key objective has been to make sure that our framework is suitable across a broad range of economic conditions. At the same time, the framework needs to evolve with changes in the structure of the economy and our understanding of those changes. The Great Depression presented different challenges from those of the Great Inflation and the Great Moderation, which in turn are different from the ones we face today. At the time of the last review, we were living in a new normal, characterized by the proximity of interest rates to the effective lower bound, or ELB, along with low growth, low inflation, and a very flat Phillips curve, meaning that inflation was not very responsive to slack in the economy. To me, a statistic that captures that era is that our policy rate was stuck at the ELB for 7 long years following the onset of the global financial crisis in late 2008. Many here will recall the sluggish growth and painfully slow recovery of that era. It appeared highly likely that if the economy experienced even a mild downturn, our policy rate would be back at the ELB very quickly, probably for another extended period. Inflation and inflation expectations could then decline in a weak economy, raising real interest rates as nominal rates were pinned near zero. Higher real rates would further weigh on job growth and reinforce the downward pressure on inflation and inflation expectations, triggering an adverse dynamic. The economic conditions that brought the policy rate to the ELB and drove the 2020 framework changes were thought to be rooted in slow-moving global factors that would persist for an extended period. And they might well have done so, if not for the pandemic. The 2020 consensus statement included several features that addressed the ELB-related risks that had become increasingly prominent over the preceding 2 decades. We emphasized the importance of anchored inflation, longer-term inflation expectations, to support both our price stability and maximum employment goals. Drawing on an extensive literature on strategies to mitigate risks associated with the ELB, we adopted flexible average inflation targeting, a make-up strategy to ensure that inflation expectations would remain well anchored, even with the ELB constraint. In particular, we said that following periods when inflation had been running persistently above 2%, appropriate monetary policy would likely aim to achieve inflation moderately above 2% for some time. In the event, rather than low inflation in the ELB, the post-pandemic reopening brought the highest inflation in 40 years to economies around the world. like most other central banks and private sector analysts, through year-end 2021, we thought that inflation would subside fairly quickly without a sharp tightening in our policy stance, as this slide will show. When it became clear this was not the case, we responded forcefully, raising our policy rate by 5.25 percentage points over 16 months. That action, combined with the unwinding of pandemic supply disruptions, contributed to inflation moving much closer to our target without the painful rise in unemployment that has accompanied previous efforts to counter high inflation. This year's review considered how economic conditions have evolved over the past 5 years. During this period, we saw that the inflation situation can change rapidly in the face of large shocks. In addition, interest rates are now substantially higher than was the case during the era between the global financial crisis and the pandemic. With inflation above target, our policy rate is restrictive, modestly so in my view. We cannot say for certain where rates will settle out over the longer run, but their neutral rate may now be higher than during the 2010s, reflecting changes in productivity, demographics, fiscal policy, and other factors that affect the balance between saving and investment. During the review, we discussed how the 2020 statement's focus on the ELB may have complicated communications about our response to high inflation. We concluded that the emphasis on an overly specific set of economic conditions may have led to some confusion, and as a result, we made several important changes to the consensus statement to reflect that insight. First, we removed language indicating that the ELB was a defining feature of the economic landscape. Instead, we noted that our monetary policy strategy is designed to promote maximum employment and stable prices across a broad range of economic conditions. The difficulty of operating near the ELB remains a potential concern, but it is not our primary focus. The revised statement reiterates that the committee is prepared to use its full range of tools to achieve its maximum employment and price stability goals, particularly if the federal funds rate is constrained by the ELB. Second, we returned to a framework of flexible inflation targeting and eliminated the makeup strategy. As it turned out, the idea of an intentional moderate inflation overshoot had proved irrelevant. There was nothing intentional or moderate about the inflation that arrived a few months after we announced our 2020 changes to the consensus statement, as I acknowledged publicly in 2021. Well-anchored inflation expectations were critical to our success in bringing down inflation without a sharp increase in unemployment. Anchored expectations promote the return of inflation to target when adverse shocks drive inflation higher and limit the risk of deflation when the economy weakens. Further, they allow monetary policy to support maximum employment in economic downturns without compromising price stability. Our revised statement emphasizes our commitment to act forcefully to ensure that longer-term inflation expectations remain well anchored to the benefit of both sides of our dual mandate. It also notes that price stability is essential for a sound and stable economy and supports the well-being of all Americans. This theme came through loud and clear at our Fed Listens events. The past 5 years have been a painful reminder of the hardship that high inflation imposes, especially on those least able to meet the higher costs of necessities. Third, our 2020 statement said that we would mitigate shortfalls rather than deviations from maximum employment. The use of shortfalls reflected the insight that our real-time assessments of the natural rate of unemployment, and hence of maximum employment, are highly uncertain. The later years of the post-global financial crisis recovery featured employment running for an extended period above mainstream estimates of its sustainable level, along with inflation running persistently below our 2% target. In the absence of inflationary pressures, it might not be necessary to tighten policy based solely on uncertain real-time estimates of the natural rate of unemployment. We still have that view, but our use of the term shortfalls was not always interpreted as intended, raising communications challenges. In particular, the use of shortfalls was not intended as a commitment to permanently forswear preemption or to ignore labor market tightness. Accordingly, we removed shortfalls from our statement. Instead, the revised document now states more precisely that the committee recognizes that employment may run at times above real-time assessments of maximum employment without necessarily creating risks to price stability. Of course, preemptive action would likely be warranted if tightness in the labor market or other factors pose risks to price stability. The revised statement also notes that maximum employment is the highest level of employment that can be achieved on a sustained basis in a context of price stability. This focus on promoting a strong labor market underscores the principle that durably achieving maximum employment fosters broad-based economic opportunities and benefits for all Americans. The feedback we received at Fed Listens events reinforced the value of a strong labor market for American households, employers, and communities. Fourth, consistent with the removal of shortfalls, we made changes to clarify our approach in periods where our employment and inflation objectives are not complementary. In those circumstances, we will follow a balanced approach in promoting them. The revised statement now more closely aligns with the original 2012 language. We take into account the extent of departures from our goals and the potentially different time horizons over which each is projected to return to a level consistent with our dual mandate. These principles guide our policy decisions today, as they did in the 2022 to 24 period, when the departure from our 2% inflation target was the overriding concern. In addition to these changes, there is a great deal of continuity with past statements. The document continues to explain how we interpret the mandate Congress has given us and describes the policy framework that we believe will best promote maximum employment and price stability. We continue to believe that monetary policy must be forward-looking and consider the lags in its effects on the economy. For this reason, our policy actions depend on the economic outlook and the balance of risks to that outlook. We continue to believe that setting a numerical goal for employment is unwise because the maximum level of employment is not directly measurable and changes over time for reasons unrelated to monetary policy. We also continue to view a longer-run inflation rate of 2% as most consistent with our dual mandate goals. We believe that our commitment to this target is a key factor, helping keep longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Experience has shown that 2% inflation is low enough to ensure that inflation is not a concern in household and business decision-making, while also providing a central bank with some policy flexibility to provide accommodation during economic downturns. Finally, the revised consensus statement retained our commitment to conduct a public review roughly every 5 years. There's nothing magic about the 5-year pace. That frequency allows policymakers to reassess structural features of the economy and to engage with the public, practitioners, and academics on the performance of our framework. It is also consistent with several global peers. To wrap up, I want to thank President Schmid and all of his great Kansas City staff who work so diligently to host this outstanding event annually, counting a couple of virtual appearances during the pandemic. This is the 8th time I've had the honor to speak from this podium. Each year, this symposium offers the opportunity for Fed leaders to hear ideas from leading economic thinkers and focus on the challenges we face. The Kansas City Fed was very wise to lure Chair Volcker here to this national park more than 40 years ago, and I am so proud to be part of that tradition. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll move into the presentations. So I want to allow a minute for all of the members of the press to go.
now you're on my level. Yeah? Yeah. Are you on my level or mine? I'm on mine. You're on my level there.
Mic check, test. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Test 1.
Yeah.
Joe, that's the whitest.
No, that's my line. You can, that's the ring. They're working with the problem. No, back one. Is that we I was real big ones. Lug it around town.
Horace has that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 1, 2.
I took my camera. I didn't take. That's not you. I'll start wide.
You have a camera? Oh, you have a reporter or no?
No, right now. Okay. I don't know if anybody's coming.
You have a reporter or? You have a reporter or no?
I saw Tom's email about that. I left you a message. Or text message. What's that? I saw some text. Oh, okay, yeah, well, you just texted me today. So it's me, so that's it. We still don't know. That was E-train. That's like easy. I don't think I could have heard of that. Yeah. No, I got it from City Hall. Oh, okay. I was going from that's a straight run, it's just a little bit of delay. I couldn't have worked. No, I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have done it. I came back in 4 months, which was pretty quick. Yeah, usually at 6. I can go all the way up.
No, it's just exercise.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really hurt much. I'm doing it. Actually, I need to do all this stuff at home. What I don't understand is, what baffles me is, I mean, the doctor, I hate physical therapy sessions like this after using 2 weeks. Why would you hate like that?
Sometimes
I gotta call this
homemade stuff.
I really don't want to do 4 every day. Do it 4, so that's stupid, man. I want to do, I do 2 every week. Why don't you want to do it?
Pepper steak was good.
I guess we're gonna do 3. Doing 4 a week is too much. Yeah. You ever heard of 2 good to go? It's a pain in the ass. It doesn't work. because that all has to work. They are a little bit, yeah. Wings don't bother me as much. It's not really, it's like going up and down.
Guys, just make sure, is everyone set? I'll give you a warning, is everyone set?
Yeah.
Is everyone good to go?
Yeah.
All right, tough one.
Like when the weights are going up and down, go a little bit, that's where it's gonna hurt. When that you get too much weight. And you know what hurts is pulling stuff out of the wall. These things, and you have to pull them out of the wall, and I'm getting better, but that's where I get sore. That's the best thing. That's where I really feel it. It takes a long time. It takes a long time. You like it, right? It's the best deal I've seen. And the thing about bread is you can put it in the freezer and last to use it out. So it's healthy bread. It's not too frosted. Depends on the size of the loaf and the shapes. But you just put it in bread. Because I don't make it doesn't have any other freezer. Like no salad, and yeah, bread does well in the freezer.
Rapid response to Suite B, ACC Suite B. Rapid response to Suite B, ACC. Rapid response to ACC Suite B. Rapid response to ACC Suite B. Cancel rapid response to ACC Suite B. Cancel rapid response to ACC Suite B. Cancel rapid response to ACC Suite B.
Well, yeah, you gotta give location to the one neighborhood here, and it's not gonna get someone to make it.
No, what I'm saying is, they're not gonna do that. But, oh, I forgot. you trying to control? Keep going. Go on Bailey, turn right on.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see now.
That way to load it up on the rest.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Oh, I Oh, really?
ABC, what report are you looking for? Who? How far is he? Because once they start, they can't just walk into the press conference because they're going to walk right into the podium. So you got to hurry up, right?
Hey, there's people outside waiting. They have no idea how to get inside here.
There's 91st Avenue. I read the directions. It says 91st Avenue off of Van
Yeah, but we
Expressway.
have photography. We're not that smart.
Right, but
No, I know.
I know the public schedule says 91st Avenue. So what? Who's out there? Who's out there right now?
He's right outside.
Going this way really well. Yeah, I'm not hurting it. I'm just working on it. Like I feel something in there. It's fine. Right, which is fine. No, I'm not doing that. I'm just trying to do it, like I said, like that. You're going right in here. I also had a bicep tendon also. I had a bicep tendon and everything. So it's worse. Yeah. Actually, the point wasn't like that. Don't worry. I didn't. No, it's something that it's talking about. I don't know if they're hot. I don't find the post them. I drive by South Africa. I go to 3 acres mall there. They were bringing Valley Stream. It sucks. No, it's one that's bad. It's not great. It's a Walmart. Everybody. It's probably 90% more this year. Like, what kind of Walmart? There's no Walmart in New Jersey. Everybody goes to it. It's so proud. Freddie was like, where that? No, it's cheaper. You get milk is like a gallon of milk is $4 at the grocery store. It's only $2.60 there. That's a big difference. Yeah, it's half price. I mean, everything is like it's cheaper. Oh, it's like they go out. Everything is cheaper. Bread, lettuce, lettuce is what, $3.50. There's like $1.80. Going up, going up. Some things aren't, but most, a lot of things are. Their milk is like totally different. So does not. No, because they just soda's I don't drink any soda, but oh, it's like really right. Oh, $200, like $3.50. You get them on sale. Everything's ridiculous. Drink coffee. I don't think I'm $17. It was a couple months big, like a big, the bigger size. It used to be 10, 10.50. Now it's up to 17. It's that's it. No, that Walmart brand, Maxwell. But that's at Walmart. Now the grocery store is $24. Like a big tractor at Walmart. I don't drink is $6.70. A big one at grocery store go $10. That's crazy. Self-service lines, they got rid of they got rid of all of them. So that's the way I want it. It's the only ones, but it's just like fast. They have to knock the Sears, they're knocking it down. All the Sears closed. And they knocked the foot.
ABC, you get your guy? Yeah. You guy here? Is anybody else looking for anybody, or are we good? Does anyone know if anyone's having trouble getting here? Arrows? No, post report. Yeah, no. So everyone's good? There's nobody that was straggling around? Yes, no? Good. Reporters are very quiet right now. That's good. Is it? I don't know. You got a light we can set up?
I had a little salt and pepper. No garlic. You got a lot of
Yes. I just, yes. Good for your ingredients. Thanks. I appreciate it. Now it's what they got told to do is go like this, hold your head up, and like 20 seconds long doing this. You see how it's shaking? That's because it's weak, right? But after I do it, it's sore. That's what we get, right? But it's shaking, which means it's weak, right? Right, that's what I'm saying. The other one's fine. That's what I'm saying. Because it's the muscles. I don't know what else there is. It's been 4 months. But it shakes like that. Oh, of course they are. I haven't heard that before. I haven't heard it. I haven't heard it. I hear it all the time with John all the time. I haven't heard it. I think the bicep have been added to that's why I'm having difficulties. You're seeing that bicep. Well, that makes it made it worse. But I was covered with the yeah, workers' comp, so I still had to take the surgery. I've been taking a lot still. A good amount. Therapy cost, insanity, would add up, and surgery was probably 20-something thousand.
overhang.
That was, they were, what were they 19% on all that? It still cost a lot of money. I paid $2 so far. Because what happened was, after the surgery, I was a mess, man. They gave me too much anesthesia, and I had to get, I think I was done with the surgery at 12 o'clock on Thursday. I wasn't normal for Friday and Saturday. I was nauseous. I was dizzy. So I had to get nauseous pills for my nauseous and pain pills, oxycodone twice. But the dollar each. Because I just did my normals. I did my normals. So I wasn't going to start. Get this save $2. Crazy. Then 60% short-term disability. I got basically great.
The other day, my wife migrated from continuous focus to single brain focus. So I think one might think
What's up? Oh, you got it fixed?
And a loan is over here.
We're going to be starting.
I know, well, less than 2 minutes. Hold on.
Right. Oh, it's actually in line.
Lowered the speaker. You know how they were doing it. All right. So it's not going off there.
How are they on?
Makes sense. That is should be.
Yeah. I got it.
I think he turned off the speaker.
Turn the speaker down.
We know what's up.
What's going on, buddy?
You stay out now?
Nah.
Soon.
Hopefully.
How's your editing?
Great.
Good editor.
Done like this. I don't even look at it anymore. Yep.
So you know you're good.
Handstand too. How you doing?
How am I?
Yeah. Feel better?
Better. It's not 100%. I'll take that. Definitely not 100%. That's been a while. I can't shoot a football that I've got. Basically, it doesn't cost no scrubs.
Just one more time. Do we have any stragglers or are we good? Everyone's good?
We're good.
All right, so no one, all right, cool. Just making sure everyone's happy. All right, no protest.
Yes, man. He said, okay. I said, so he wrote, he gave me because I can't. Like, that's what it really, when I had the injury, it was in April, I think it's a surgery, and we're telling them.
We're not starting yet, we're just setting principles up, right?
That was hurt.
12:30? Probably. The first deputy. Scott.
Scott.
At the end of the day, all I really need is the podium.
Heads up, guys. Heads up, guys. Heads up.
Today we are reminded once more of the risk every man and woman that performs public safety in the city, specifically the members of the New York City Police Department, faces when they put on the uniform and that badge, especially with our current state laws that allow for a revolving door of criminal activity. And for dangerous people to be put back on our streets after they have committed crimes, and as recently as yesterday, and on parole, it just sends a terrible signal to our public and a terrible symbol to the men and women who repeatedly attempt to apprehend and ensure our city is a safe place. Patrol officers from the 109th Precinct responded to a carjacking of an Uber driver. While at the location, on-duty narcotics detectives from Queens South, who were headed back to their office after executing a search warrant, came across the incident and stopped to help the apprehension. During the apprehension, one detective from Queens South Narcotics was shot twice, wounded in the arm and the leg. At this time, it appears this was a friendly fire incident. Thankful these injuries are not life-threatening, and we expect him to make a full recovery. We just visited his mom and his wife, who is expecting a child at this time, and it was a relief to them that their loved one will be okay. And I want to thank him for his bravery when I visit him. He's now in surgery and his 12 years of service. Right now, one perpetrator is in custody and will face justice in the court of law. But I want to be clear, regardless of who shot our detective, there's one person responsible for starting the chain of events that landed us in the hospital today. This is a man who should have been behind bars, not on our streets. He's a 28-year-old recidivist with a lengthy rap sheet of robbery and assaulting officers, who was on parole for a robbery that took place in March. and was literally arrested again and released yesterday with a desk appearance ticket. Before going out to attempt a carjacking in Queens, he walked out of one of our criminal justice locations. This is a definition, I believe, of insanity. Arresting the same people over and over again and expecting different results. NYPD is gathering more information about the crime, but it's clear that this individual has no business walking free and endangering New Yorkers. From day one, this administration has been focused on driving down crime and have delivered results over and over again. But we need help from our lawmakers. We cannot allow repeated offenders to commit repeated violent acts in our city. We know the reality of what that means, and we know what it means to prepare our officers for this dangerous work. They're training hard and taking risks. They run towards dangers while others run away. We call them New York finest for a reason, and we saw that today. And we're going to continue to support them as they do their job. I want to turn it over to Commissioner to give a full details of the events.
Thank you, sir. The information that I am about to provide is preliminary and subject to change. At this point, here is what we know. Earlier this morning, as detectives assigned to Queens South Narcotics were returning to their command after performing a search warrant in the 113 precinct. They encountered officers from the 109 precinct along the side of the Whitestone Expressway near 22nd Road, engaging a suspect. That job began when an Uber driver in a black Toyota Highlander was parked just off the service road of the Whitestone Expressway at approximately 8:52 a.m. A male approaches the vehicle, announces a robbery, and displays what appears to be a firearm to the driver. The driver exits the vehicle and is assaulted by the perp. The driver calls 911 to report the carjacking a minute later at 8:53 a.m. The perp attempts to drive away, but the victim still has the vehicle's keys, forcing the perp to immediately return and collide with another car at the location. The perp then assaults the victim a second time in an effort to retrieve the keys, tackling the victim to the ground. Having retrieved the keys, the perp starts to slowly drive away and makes a right-hand turn onto 22nd Road. At this point, officers from the 109 are responding to the victim's 911 call about the robbery in progress. They engage the car in an attempt to make an apprehension. Detectives assigned to Queens South Narcotics see the patrol officers attempting to make the apprehension and try to assist by blocking the car in. At 8:57 a.m., officers discharge their firearms. The perp is not hit, but one of our officers assigned to Queens South Narcotics is struck one time in the right hand and one time in the left leg. He was removed here to Jamaica Hospital. This incident is recorded on body-worn camera. Blessedly, as the mayor said, our officer is in stable condition and is both conscious and alert. I am pleased to report that I met with him and his family, and he is in good spirits. He is in surgery now. The perpetrator is uninjured and was taken into custody. At this time, this incident appears to be friendly fire, as we did not recover a firearm from the perpetrator on scene. The perp in this incident is identified as 28-year-old Kevin Dubuisson. Mr. Dubuisson has a lengthy, violent criminal history with 10 career unsealed arrests, including multiple knife-point robberies and multiple assaults on police officers. At just 28 years old, he is a 4-time convicted felon. Mr. Dubuisson is currently out on parole for robbery after being released from prison in March of this year, and was actually arrested just yesterday for theft of service in Manhattan and released with only a desk appearance ticket. Importantly, prior to the criminal justice reforms of 2020, an individual out on parole would not be eligible for a DAT. Mr. Dubuisson also has documented EDP history with the department. Prior to the incident with the Uber driver, at approximately 8:40 a.m. this morning, Mr. Dubuisson attempted to steal a car from a mobile gas station on Parsons Boulevard and 20th Avenue, but was scared off by employees there. Then, 2 minutes later, he attempts to carjack a female on Parsons Boulevard, just steps away from the gas station, but the victim's husband runs outside and scares him off. It was then that he encountered the Uber driver on the service road along the Whitestone Expressway. This chain of events, which could have ended quite differently, began because a career criminal, a person who has terrorized victims for nearly a decade, was allowed to continue his violent spree. It is unconscionable that a violent predicate felon who pled guilty to 2 more robberies was out on the streets to commit his crimes today. That is criminal justice reform for you. I want to thank the entire staff of Jamaica Hospital. They are taking excellent care of our officer. And this is just another reminder of the dangerous situations that our cops confront every single time they put that uniform on. We are praying for a speedy recovery and hope to see our officer home with his family soon. Thank you, and now I'm going to turn it over to Scott.
Good morning. My name is Scott Moran, I'm the Detective Endowment Association president. I have a message for Albany. Come off your vacation now, get up in Albany, and let's start working to protect our police, our detectives that are out there working every day. In fact, this detective, thank God he's okay today. Okay, he was out working, protecting the people of the city of New York this morning, executing a search warrant. And now he's sitting upstairs in surgery. We need your help in Albany. It's just not about retaining police officers. We want police officers to be safe. That's what we're here. We want them to be safe. Just like the people of New York, we want to be safe. But we want our police officers safe. And it's about time that the legislators, it's about time Albany gets together, the Assembly and the Senate, with the governor, and start working on this. Get this fixed. It needs to be fixed right away. That should be on your first thing on your agenda back in the next couple weeks. It actually should be started tomorrow, right now. Let's get this done. I'd like to thank the hospital, everybody, the doctors, everybody that's done a great job with our people here. We don't want to plan funerals. That's not what we're here for. We're here to protect the city of New York. Now we need your help, Albany. Thank you.
Questions on topic?
The firearm you mentioned, was that a detail in the 911 call, the flashed potential firearm that wasn't recovered on scene?
Yeah, so the 2 different 911 calls that we looked at, the one female from the gas station, she describes what appeared to be a firearm, and the male, the Uber driver, describes that the male perpetrator was armed with a weapon.
But he was never found with that gun?
That's correct.
Anybody else on topic? Rocco?
But Chief, is it yet clear if the officer who fired realized the narcotics officers were in fact police? And can you describe the layout? Was this a ricochet off the vehicle that hit the officer? Was he in a line of fire?
Yeah, crime scene's going through that right now. We'll get the trajectory of who fired what round. But what it appears is that there was a crossfire incident. The narcotics detectives were in the front of the perpetrator car. The 109 patrol was in the rear.
Anyone else?
How many officers opened fire in that moment?
Right now it appears 3 officers from patrol fired.
Sorry, go ahead.
Can you tell us anything about the officer you mentioned? His wife is pregnant, you know where he's from, how old he is?
No.
That's all they're going to share right now. Anything else? Let me just go one more time. Go ahead, Robert.
For both the mayor and the commissioner. So regarding him being released following the arrest yesterday, I mean, in all likelihood, even pre-reform, he would have been arraigned and released. But is there anything about his release in March that is particularly troubling beyond the fact that he was...
Yeah, this was a guy who was a violent predicate felon, arrested 2 more times thereafter. He should not have been out on our streets this morning.
Thank you guys so much for coming.
What's your name?
During the map drawing process to determine voter preferences, as you've mentioned, you mentioned the partisan preferences, but also by racial group. That's what I'm trying to figure out, what analysis was made.
All I can tell you is that I very specifically asked our legal counsel to run jingles and the other analyses that are used to determine if a map complies with the VRA, constitutional and other requirements. And I have been well assured that this map complies with the VRA in all respects, as well as all other applicable law.
So I appreciate that. So you're telling me that the legal counsel that did know who drew these maps, that you asked them, run an analysis through the Voter Rights Act, through jingles, and tell me that they're legal. Did they tell you which districts race was taken into account to make sure that they're legal?
I was only presented with their conclusion, not any underlying data, whatever that may have involved.
Understood. So we know race was taken into account to make it legal. We know, I'm just curious, because you're confident that you believe that these districts were presented to you after having been analyzed. I'm curious, how was race taken into account in the drafting? Do you know how the race was taken into account?
All I can tell you is that every map I have looked at, and I haven't drawn a single map, I have in years past, but I have not had anything to do, I have not drawn any map during this process.
Okay.
What I have done is the maps that have been presented to me for consideration, before I even looked at them,
right,
I turned them over to counsel and I said, take it, give it a good legal scrubbing, and bring me back your conclusions.
Okay. So the current existing congressional maps, the ones that were drawn in 2021, did you consider districts that were currently protected by the Voting Rights Act when this new map was drawn? Did you say, hey, these are protected, make sure they stay protected when the drawing of this map? Did you all ask that?
My instructions were that I would not bring a map before the committee, and certainly not before this body, until I was told that it was legal in all respects.
Do you believe that there's racially polarized voting in Texas?
I'm not sure I'm even qualified to comment on that. I'm familiar with some of the prior case determinations that have been made in previous years. I don't know what the state of voting is today. I just know that the map that is before us today is legal with regard to the VRA and other applicable law.
Did you do any analysis or review of whether voting is racially polarized in Texas before, during, or after the drawing of this map?
I have not personally done any analysis.
Okay. Do you know which districts in this new map, in the map that you've laid before us in this Plan C2333, you know which districts are located in areas that have any polarized voting, racially polarized voting?
I think the map speaks for itself in terms of its geographic boundaries. I have not personally made any analysis that you've referenced. All I can tell you is that I have been assured that this map does not violate the VRA or any other applicable law.
What analysis of Latino voters' preferences were conducted before drafting any of the districts in this plan?
Well, I'm confident for each district there was a jingles type analysis. There are other things that are done, regression analysis and others. I'm not familiar with all of those. What I did, because I'm not an expert on either the statistician side or the legal side, was I hired a law firm, engaged a law firm that has decades of experience and that I could have a lot of confidence in. And I asked them to scrub each map I considered beforehand.
You mentioned they presented you a report, that they said that they presented your report because you asked them to make sure to scrub it using jingles, Voters' Rights Act. Do you know what elections they looked at?
Not specifically. I just made sure that I have the highest confidence that they did a very thorough analysis.
Do you know what kind of election analysis they conducted?
Not specifically.
Last two questions. Which Latino majority districts in the 2021 maps, the ones we currently have today, do you consider to be protected under the Voter Rights Act?
I don't have an opinion on that.
You don't know which ones are currently protected so that you can make sure these are legal?
Again, I have intentionally not looked at any racial data. I've tried to just focus on political performance.
Okay. And since you believe that these maps that you have before us are legal, could you please name the districts in this new map that are required by the Federal Voting Rights Act? So if these are legal, which one of the districts in here are going to be required to be protected under the Voter Rights Act? Can you tell us which ones?
No.
So I'm sorry, this is my last question. You mentioned that this is a compact, improves compactness, right?
Yes.
And as I look at this, it strikes me as odd, and I wonder why, if you could tell me why. Almost all of it seems that many of the rural districts are somewhat uniformly in shape, but when you get to the urban districts of Bear and Tarrant and Dallas and Travis, they seem to be, and Harris for sure, they seem to be carved up. As you look at the colors, they look like a bowl of something you'd get at Chipotle or something. They're just, why is it that Travis has got districts that, you said compact, but yet you go from Travis down to the coast to Aransas Pass? How is that compact?
Well, within the urban areas, it's generally a factor of population density.
Population density. And what?
Let me finish.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It also gets into efforts to try to, where you can, hold communities of interest together. And of course, contiguity, every district has to continue, they can't be broken. But the other part of it is that, and our Senate districts are examples of that as well, but when you have to get, in this case, 766,000 people into 38 districts, and so many of our counties have only 5 or 10 or 20,000 in population, it is very common, in fact, it is unavoidable, that you just have to reach into urban areas, take population, and then reach out and pull in a bunch of rural and suburban counties to be able to balance out that one person, one vote. And that's why, and frankly, it's a lot easier to draw in a county like one of mine that has 4,000 people. It's very easy to draw that whole county into one district. It's much more complex when you have a dense urban area.
You've been a legislator for a long time, isn't that correct? Many years?
This I guess, is my 27th.
27 years. And so we've been through redistricting many times. You mentioned that, correct, right?
Yes, you and I both.
And isn't it true, because through all of the districting, that the overwhelming majority of racial minorities live in these same urban counties that you've cut up in little strips in this map? Isn't that true? I mean, it is true. I mean, it's just population. That's where they live.
Again, I haven't looked at any racial data, but I would just say off the top of my head, South Texas has a lot of rural areas that are heavily Hispanic in population. That's just common.
Right, but I was just asking about the urban counties that have been cut into little strips.
Again, I haven't looked at any racial data.
Thank you for answering my questions. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Senator Zaffarini.
Thank you, Mr. President.
For what purpose?
To ask questions of the author.
Do you yield?
Certainly.
Thank you, Mr. President. He's been waiting for these.
Pins and needles.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, Representative Hunter has claimed repeatedly that Senate District 9 and Senate District 35 in this new map are to be Hispanic majority districts. Is that your understanding?
I have no personal knowledge of that.
Thank you. And you have said it is your belief that the Hispanic population in Texas supports Republicans. Is that correct?
I think I'm sorry, I'm not sure how you're phrasing that. Are you asking me if do I believe that Hispanic citizens will vote for Republicans? Yes, I do.
That you have said that. Yes, thank you. Are you aware that data scientists can calculate the preferred candidates for racial groups in precise areas, and this is called a racially polarized voting, or RPV analysis?
I'm generally familiar with that concept.
Thank you. You said in committee that you were unaware of anyone had performed a racial polarization analysis of your map. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Do you know if the map drawers were provided the reams of RPV analysis offered in the El Paso trial in May and June of this year?
And let me qualify that last answer, if I could, a little bit,
Certainly.
please. Again, as I said earlier, I'm not a redistricting expert, and I'm not on the law or on the statistical side. I employed a law firm as counsel that has decades of experience, and my direction to them was look at this map, take whatever analysis steps are necessary, and let me know if it complies with all applicable parts of the law, and also will it perform the way I hope it will politically. And they brought those conclusions back to me. So I don't know the specific steps they took, but I'm very confident that they took all necessary steps to make those determinations.
Thank you. Do you know if those map drawers were provided the reams of RPV analysis offered in the El Paso trial in May and June?
I have not been told that they were short of any data that they required to make their analysis.
Did you look at any of those data?
No.
Have the map drawers or anyone else, as far as you know, done an RPV analysis of any mapping proposal filed during these two special sessions? not during the trial, but during these 2 special sessions?
Has my legal counsel?
No. Have the map drawers or anyone else, including your legal counsel, done an RPV analysis of the mapping proposal?
I don't have any personal knowledge of that.
Thank you. Are you aware that a majority of the Hispanic population that your map includes in CD9 and CD35 prefers Democrats in elections?
Again, I haven't looked at any racial data, but I can tell you the way the districts are drawn, specifically CD9, it should perform competitively for Republicans.
Thank you. Have you seen the data analysis performed by some data scientists at UCLA on your map? My staff provided yours with a copy of it.
No, I haven't.
Thank you. For example, in your new CD9, 61.99% of the Hispanic population voted for Harris for president. Were you aware of that?
No.
For example, in your CD35, 64.73% of the Hispanic population also voted for Harris for president. Were you aware of that?
No.
Thank you.